Zoro! 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 Zoro!
What you are looking at is the face of a man watching everything he cares for slip away right before his very eyes. This was the moment when Luffy almost lost everything. So how did we even get here in the first place? It's because Luffy broke a promise. It was definitely warranted, I'm not gonna lie. In Sabaody, we were introduced to Oda's worst figment of his imagination, the Celestial Dragons. Terrible, trifling people. It was like Oda wanted to personify the word evil when coming up with these characters. Like, for example, take a good look at this man. He's a slave fighting for his life because he's been crawling for miles carrying this big back 300-pound baby. Wait, I can't even call him that because babies have more maturity than him. He's more like a behemoth. As trifling as this is, it gets even worse when this celestial dragon strolls through town and notices a man on 1 HP. And just because they were moving in his presence, he ruins his chance at living. Bro's about to die, and while he's fighting for his life, he tries to wipe up the nurse taking care of him. He's unfortunately done this to like 5 women already. The only thing about this woman is she's about to get married. Before she can even say anything, her fiance runs out to let him know. And he dies because of it. Imagine this face is the last thing you see before you die. That's tough. But by the reaction of the people present, you could tell this was a normal day for the nobles. This is important because Luffy breaking his promise here wasn't out of the blue. It was what he had to do. Luffy, before meeting any of these people, is informed by Hachi and tells him to promise that if he sees anything out of hand, that he doesn't act, that he stays calm, and to my surprise, Luffy agrees to promise on that. I knew this was a shaky agreement to begin with because Luffy never stood down in the face of injustice. It irritates him so bad that he feels like he just has to move. But things truly hit the fan when the crew has to act on saving their friend Cammy, who just got kidnapped to be sold as a slave. The initial plan was just to go band for band with everyone at the auction. This plan should have worked because the Straw Hats had some deep pockets during this time. Everything should have been smooth until Elon Musk, the Celestial Dragon, pulls up to the function. To put in perspective, the Straw Hats were willing to put 200 million down max. St. Carlos, this man's first bid was 500 mil. The Straw Hats lost right here, so they had to find another way. Luffy bum rushes the whole event, running towards Cammy, and as Hachi tries to make his way to stop Luffy from causing a commotion, his true identity was revealed. To give context, fishermen in Sabaody were basically treated like us black people pre-MLK patch. And because all 6 of Hachi's arms were exposed, all attention shifted back to him. And pause right here. Because after rewatching this episode, I noticed one wild detail. Luffy is the one breaking every rule held in this auction. And instead of stopping him, a bullet was shot, with blood dripping down Hachi's arms. A buffoon is jumping for joy, dancing over Luffy's friend's body. When I first watched this, I was in shock. This wasn't even funny anymore. This was straight up evil. That sealed the deal. Consequence was a word that didn't exist in Luffy's vocabulary at that point. Hachi tries to stop him and remind him about the promise that Luffy made. But Luffy pauses for a moment and looks at Hachi. Not in a manner that he'll change his mind, but in a more apologetic sense because he knew his next action was going to bring havoc to Sabaody. What happens next has to be in my top 5 One Piece moments so far. Luffy walks this dude down with a face of pure anger, and without a word, he punches the Celestial Dragon into oblivion. I was hyped out my chair. I was lit. I kid y'all not, I was punching the air myself in this moment. This right here signified the pure disdain for the government and the principle that Luffy won't ever bend over to injustice, even when he's outmatched. But as we all know, every action has a consequence. The big dogs have arrived on Sabaody, and face to face with the Straw Hats is a pseudo warlord ready to fight. Luffy understands it's no time to mess around. He hops straight into gear 2 with Sanji and Zoro right behind him. It starts off as a 3-man weave, dodging all the beams heading towards them. They all attack at once with their signatures, and this robot is eating these attacks like dinner. At full power, all these attacks did was ram him into a building. The Kuma bot is back up like nothing happened, and while he's focused on Luffy, Zoro tries to set up the sneak. Shout out to Zoro, always looking for opportunity. He uses the 3-pound cannon to knock him off his pivot, and Sanji attempts to seal the deal going for the sweep, but somehow he's still standing. They're struggling this much against a fake warlord, and the Admiral hasn't even pulled up yet. The fighting conditions get worse as the Kuma bot charges up a beam that could one-shot the entire crew. Sanji and Zoro are tired of it, so they get serious, with Sanji's leg on fire and Zoro tying his bandana on. You already know what time it was. They go for the final attack. They land their hits, and Luffy makes sure he won't get back up, going for the Gear 3 rifle finish. The battle is over, and the crew takes a breather. But this one fight was a terrible sign, as it was not the W they thought it was. The Straw Hats fought one cyborg clone, and were basically maxed out. Little did they know, above them was certain defeat. Another Kuma, Pacifista to be clear, pulls up on the scene. These are one of those moments where I'm like, no way they make it out alive. Ow. And for what feels like the first time, Luffy felt the same thing as well, so he orders a strategic retreat. The crew splits up and tries to make a run for it. Unfortunately though, they do run into roadblocks. Nami and Sanji have to get around the Pacifistas, while Luffy wastes no time trying to blitz Sentomaru. He uses a Gatling, but Sentomaru uses Haki to put him down. But the group with the worst situation had to be Zoro and Usopp, because they didn't just see their life flash before their eyes. They watched a life flash before their eyes. The man they tried their best to avoid pulls up and one-shots Zoro. Kizaru was terrifying in Sabaody because he felt like a loose end. His demeanor was off-putting. We knew he was there to eliminate the Straw Hats, but it looked like he wanted to take his time doing it, dismantling them piece by piece to use them as an example to not mess with any higher ranks. He had this smug look on his face while everyone tried their best to stop him. The crew feels the hopelessness and despair rising as all Chopper can do is beg Zoro to run. It seems like the first crew member to finally say goodbye to the Straw Hats was Pirate Hunter Zoro. Oh wait. Talk about farming aura. I've seen this before. This is the pull-up technique, saving an individual right before they're about to die. I see you, Rayleigh. I'm familiar with your game. The Dark King is giving the Straw Hats their final opportunity to do one thing: run. Although a sliver of chance was given, this situation becomes more dire as Sentomaru and the Pacifista is still on their tails. Sanji tries to stop the Kuma bot from eliminating Zoro and Usopp, but it does nothing. Imagine running for your life and your enemy is hawking you down with a stone cold face, walking in your direction. Luffy can't even step in. Chopper doesn't try to run anymore because his mind, his body, his soul is screaming to do something. This is what I call the definition of a dog. Without a second thought, Chopper risks everything, popping 3 rumbles in one go. Whether he wins or loses, respect has to be given to Chopper. When death is at his door, he chooses to protect his friends than anything else. As much as I can give credit to everyone for doing all they could here, there's a reason why the video is titled what it is. Bartholomew Kuma has arrived. And without much thought, Target 1 has been eliminated. A shock was sent through the entire crew, stunned in disbelief, seeing the right-hand man of the captain be erased like nothing. Out of desperation, Luffy reminds the crew there's nothing left they can do but to run for their lives. Even then, Kuma goes on a rampage. Brook, gone. Usopp, gone. Sanji, dust. One by one, Luffy is feeling the gap between him and everyone else on the field. Anger fills his body and he uses it as fuel to take on Kuma one-on-one. He thinks he buys Nami and Frankie some time, but Luffy is too slow to stop the inevitable from happening. Frankie gone. And Nami, as she stares into Luffy's eyes, reaching out her hand, Luffy does the same, only to see the same result. Gone. This has to be one of the saddest moments to see Luffy in. He's moving off of sheer will, but it doesn't matter, as all his efforts were meaningless. After Kuma takes Chopper, Luffy is shot. There's little to no more fight in him. He's begging for the madness to stop, and as he runs with whatever gas he has left in the tank, Robin is the last to disappear. This being the consequences of his own action, I'm sure there's a degree of responsibility felt on his behalf. I know he doesn't regret what he did to the Celestial Dragon. I mean, it was a move that he felt like he needed to do. It was a choice respected by all the pirates there as well. It was ballsy, but everybody understood why. Even though, I think this was where Luffy finally understood how quickly his journey as a pirate can end. Sabaody arc is definitely up there with one of my favorite arcs so far. And if y'all want me to cover more moments, hit that like button and subscribe. Join the fam. But other than that, thanks for watching. God bless and peace.